The Dark Prison and the Mysterious Human. The prison was dark, cold, and filled with hopeless whispers. It was a massive underground facility, deep beneath the surface of a desert planet called Xarxis 9. The prison belonged to the Salcor Empire, a ruthless alien race that ruled many planets with fear. Inside the prison, hundreds of alien girls from different species were trapped. They were taken from their homes, their families, and forced to work as slaves. Some had scales, some had fur, and some had glowing eyes. But they all had the same pain in their hearts, the pain of being prisoners with no hope of escape. They had seen many newcomers arrive, some strong, some weak, some hopeful, some broken. But one truth always remained: no one ever escaped. Then, one night, something strange happened. The prison gates opened with a loud mechanical sound. Heavy footsteps echoed through the stone corridors. The alien girls lifted their heads, their tired eyes watching as the guards dragged a new prisoner into the main hall. But this one was different. This was not an alien. This was a human. The arrival of the human. The guards threw the human onto the cold floor. He groaned in pain, but he did not scream. His body was covered in bruises and cuts. His clothes were torn. But his eyes were sharp and full of fire. The alien girls whispered among themselves, "A human? Here? Impossible. The Salcor don't take humans as slaves. They say humans are weak. Why capture one?" The human slowly lifted his head. His short brown hair was messy, and blood dripped from his forehead. He looked around at the alien girls, then at the guards. And then he smiled. The guards growled. One of them, a large creature with black armor and 4 glowing red eyes, kicked him hard in the ribs. "You think this is funny, human?" the guard hissed. The human coughed but kept smiling. "A little bit." The guards snarled in anger. They grabbed his arms and dragged him away, taking him deep into the prison. The alien girls watched silently. None of them understood why a human would smile in a place like this. One of the alien girls, Tala, stepped forward. She was tall, with blue skin and glowing silver eyes. She had been a warrior before being captured. She had seen many strong fighters lose hope in this prison. She turned to the others. "This human is either very brave or very stupid," she said. No one argued. The strange confidence of a human. That night, the prison was silent. The air was heavy with sadness. Most prisoners had learned to accept their fate. They knew there was no escape from the Salcor Empire. But Tala could not sleep. She kept thinking about the human. Something about him felt different. She got up and walked quietly through the prison corridors, careful to avoid the guards. She found the human sitting against the stone wall in his small cell. His hands were chained, but he didn't look broken. In fact, he looked calm. Tala stood outside his cell. "You're new here, human. You should know one thing. There is no escape." The human looked up at her. His green eyes shined in the dim light. He gave a small chuckle. "That's what they want you to believe." Tala frowned. "I have been here for years. I have seen warriors, assassins, even warlords in this place. They all thought they could escape. They all failed." The human tilted his head. "Well, they weren't me." Tala crossed her arms. "You think you're special?" The human grinned. "No, I just know something they don't." She narrowed her eyes. "And what is that?" The human leaned forward. His voice was low but full of confidence. "There is always a way out." Tala stared at him. His words should have sounded like a fool's dream, but something about the way he said it made her heart race. For the first time in a long time, hope flickered inside her. The whisper of a plan. Tala wanted to ask more questions, but the sound of approaching guards made her step back into the shadows. The human saw them too, but he did not panic. He simply closed his eyes and smiled, as if he had already planned his next move. The guards entered the cell and looked down at him. One of them grabbed his shirt and lifted him up. "Tomorrow, human, We will break you." The human grinned wider. "I wouldn't count on it." The guards threw him back down and walked away. Tala watched as the human slowly sat up, stretched his arms, and sighed as if this was all just an inconvenience. She shook her head. "You're crazy," she muttered. The human smirked. "Crazy enough to leave this place soon." Tala's heart pounded. She had seen warriors with broken spirits. She had seen monsters who lost their fight. But this human was different. And for the first time, she found herself wanting to believe him. The impossible plan. The cold air of Xarxis IX's prison felt heavier that night. The underground walls, made of dark stone and alien metal, had witnessed countless screams and broken hopes. But now, something different was happening. Tala stood in the dim corridor, her heart pounding in her chest. She could barely see in the darkness, but her sharp eyes caught something impossible. The human, Ethan, was moving his wrists in an unnatural way. Then, with a small click, the chains on his hands fell to the ground. Tala's breath caught in her throat. "How?" she whispered. Ethan smirked as he rubbed his wrists. "The trick isn't to fight the chains. It's to understand them." Tala stared at him. No prisoner had ever broken free of their chains. The Xalcor Empire used special energy blocks, designed to keep even the strongest warriors trapped. But here was a human, calmly sitting on the prison floor, as if unlocking alien technology was nothing more than a game. Ethan stretched his arms and cracked his neck. "Now comes the fun part." Tala narrowed her eyes. "You really think you can escape?" Ethan grinned. "Escape? No, I'm not just escaping. I'm taking everyone with me." Tala's heart skipped a beat. A fool or a genius? The prison was massive. Hundreds of alien girls were locked in separate cells. Every exit was guarded. Every corridor was monitored. And even if someone did make it past the guards, the entire planet was under Xalcor control. Escape was impossible. Yet Ethan spoke with unshakable confidence, like a soldier planning a mission, not a prisoner trapped in an inescapable hell. Tala shook her head. "You're crazy. This place is a fortress. Even if you break out of your cell, how will you fight through the guards? How will you find a ship? How will you?" Ethan held up a finger, cutting her off. "One step at a time. First, I gather information. Second, I break out of this cell block. Third, I get my hands on a weapon. Fourth, I start causing problems." Tala folded her arms. "You think you're a one-man army?" Ethan smirked. "I know I am." Tala felt frustration rise in her chest. Why do humans always act like they can do the impossible? Ethan chuckled. "Because, Tala, for us, impossible just means hasn't been done yet." She had no response to that. The prison's weakness. Ethan moved toward the bars of his cell and glanced up. His sharp green eyes scanned the structure, searching, analyzing. Tala stepped closer, curiosity taking over. "What are you looking for?" Ethan pointed to a thin crack in the ceiling, almost invisible. "There. The prison is made of strong material, but it's old. And that means weaknesses." Tala frowned. "You plan to break the ceiling. With what? Your fists." Ethan grinned. "Nah. I'll let the guards break it for me." Tala's frown deepened. "I don't understand." Ethan leaned against the bars and sighed. "I've been watching them. The Xalcor guards. They're aggressive, but not smart. They rely too much on strength, not strategy. If you know how to push the right buttons, you can make them react the way you want." Tala crossed her arms. "So what's your plan?" Ethan's smirk widened. "I make them angry. Very angry. Provoking the beasts." The next morning, when the guards arrived for their usual inspection, Ethan was ready. A massive Xalcor warden stepped into the hall, his thick armor clanking against the ground. His black skin glowed under the dim prison lights, and his 4 red eyes scanned the prisoners with disgust. Ethan stepped forward, gripping the bars. "Hey, ugly. You sleep well. Or do you spend your nights crying like a little worm?" The prison fell silent. Tala's eyes widened. No one ever spoke back to the guards. The Xalacor warden slowly turned his head toward Ethan. "What did you just say?" Ethan leaned against the bars, completely relaxed. "Oh, sorry, you probably didn't understand. Let me say it in a way your tiny brain can handle." He cleared his throat and shouted, "You, dumb. You Geli, smell bad." Several prisoners gasped. The warden's fists clenched and his muscles tensed. Rage burned in his red eyes. "You pathetic human," the warden roared, stepping forward. "You dare insult me?" Ethan grinned. "Yeah. What are you gonna do? Cry?" The warden's roar shook the walls. He grabbed his massive shock baton, slammed it against the bars, and sent a pulse of energy through the cell. But Ethan was ready. At the last second, he leaped to the side, avoiding the shock. The energy blast struck the ceiling instead, right at the weak point Ethan had noticed. The stone cracked. A second guard joined in, swinging his weapon. Ethan dodged again, forcing the blast to hit the same spot. Crack! Tala looked up in shock. The ceiling was breaking apart. Ethan grinned. Just a little more. The warden, now completely blinded by rage, lifted his baton for one final powerful strike. Tala's instincts screamed. She knew what was about to happen. Boom! The baton slammed against the ceiling. And then everything collapsed. The first step to freedom. Dust and debris filled the air. The entire cell block shook from the impact. Ethan moved fast, grabbing the fallen guard's weapon and knocking him out before he could react. The second guard turned, but Tala, driven by pure instinct, rushed forward and kicked him in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Ethan turned to her, raising an eyebrow. "Nice kick." Tala smirked. "You're not the only one who can fight, human." Ethan chuckled. Noted. Alarms blared throughout the prison. More guards would arrive soon. Ethan spun the stolen baton in his hands, his smirk widening. Time for step 2. Tala took a deep breath. For the first time in years, she felt something strange. Something she had forgotten. Hope. The first strike. The alarm sirens screamed through the corridors of the Xalacor prison. Red lights flashed against the dark stone walls, casting long shadows as guards rushed toward cell block 17, where something impossible had just happened. A human prisoner had escaped his chains. A prisoner had knocked out 2 elite guards. And worst of all, this prisoner was not running in fear. He was preparing for a fight. The unstoppable human. Ethan Black stood at the center of the ruined cell block, gripping the stolen shock baton in his hands. His green eyes scanned the dust-filled corridor, listening for approaching footsteps. Beside him, Tala was still in shock. Her breathing was fast, her muscles tense. This was not supposed to happen. For years, she had believed escape was impossible. She had seen warriors stronger than her break under the Xalacor's rule. Yet this human was doing it, and he was smiling while doing it. Ethan turned to her. "We've got about 30 seconds before more guards show up." Tala snapped out of her thoughts. You actually did it." Ethan smirked. "I told you, Tala. There is always a way out." She exhaled sharply. "So what now, genius? You've escaped your cell, but this entire prison is a death trap. There are at least 100 guards between us and freedom." Ethan twirled the baton in his hand. "Perfect. I was worried this would be too easy." Tala shook her head. "Are all humans like this?" Ethan grinned. "Nah, most are crazier." Before she could respond, a deep roar echoed from the corridor. The reinforcements had arrived. The Xalacor strike back. Tala turned just in time to see a squad of 6 armored Xalacor warriors rushing into the cell block. Their massive bodies, covered in black battle armor, moved with terrifying speed. Their 4 glowing red eyes locked onto Ethan and Tala. One of them, a sergeant, pointed his energy rifle forward. Kill the human. The others are expendable. The soldiers raised their weapons and fired. Ethan grabbed Tala and dove behind a fallen metal beam. Red plasma shots slammed into the walls, burning through stone like it was paper. The air filled with the smell of scorched rock and melted steel. Tala gritted her teeth. We're trapped. Ethan peeked over the beam, analyzing the guards. They were moving in a tight formation, their weapons trained on him. Good, he muttered. Tala frowned. Good? What's good about? Ethan suddenly grabbed her hand and pulled her up. Time to move. What? Are you insane? They'll kill us. Ethan smirked. Only if they can hit us. And then he ran straight at them. Tala barely had time to react before she was sprinting alongside him. ***, the Xalcor soldiers hesitated for half a second. ***, surprised by their boldness. That hesitation was their mistake. The battle begins. Ethan reached the first guard before he could fire. He swung his shock baton, striking the alien's wrist. The electric pulse short-circuited the soldier's armor, making him stumble. Before the others could react, Ethan twisted the baton in his hand and jabbed it into the second soldier's neck. Crack! The energy pulse sent the Xalcor flying backward into the wall, his weapon clattering to the ground. Tala didn't waste a second. With a roar, she grabbed a fallen baton and leaped at the third guard, slamming the weapon into his chest. Sparks erupted as the armor short-circuited, and the soldier collapsed. The remaining 3 guards backed up, realizing something terrifying. This wasn't just a prison break. This was a war. The impossible plan. Tala exhaled sharply, gripping her stolen baton. Her heart pounded. I can't believe it, she muttered. We actually took them down. Ethan twirled his weapon. Of course we did. That was just the warm-up. She gave him an incredulous look. You call 6 armed guards a warm-up? Ethan grinned. You haven't seen the main event yet. Tala looked around. So what now? More will come. We can't fight the entire prison. Ethan turned toward a control panel near the prison entrance. His eyes lit up with realization. Tala, he said slowly, how much do you know about Xalcor security systems? She frowned. Enough to know that hacking them is impossible. Ethan walked up to the panel, rubbing his chin. Good thing I'm not hacking it. Tala watched in confusion as he reached into his boot and pulled out a small circular device with glowing blue lights. Where did you get that? She asked. Ethan smirked. Let's just say I planned ahead. Before Tala could ask, he slapped the device onto the control panel. The lights flashed rapidly, and suddenly, every prison door in the entire facility opened at once. A moment of silence. Then, chaos erupted. The rebellion begins. Alarms blared louder than before. Across the prison, hundreds of alien prisoners realized their doors were open. For years, they had suffered. For years, they had lost hope. But now, they had a chance. Tala looked at Ethan in shock. You just released every prisoner in the facility. Ethan grinned. I told you, Tala. I'm not escaping alone. The corridors filled with the sounds of prisoners running, shouting, and fighting back against their captors. The Xalcor guards were overwhelmed. They had never expected a full-scale riot. Tala turned to Ethan, eyes wide. You planned this from the beginning. Ethan nodded. I never start a fight I don't intend to win. Tala stared at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time in years, she smiled. All right, human, she said. Let's burn this place to the ground. Ethan's smirk widened. Now you're speaking my language. Escape begins. The prison was no longer a prison. It had become a battleground. The once silent halls of Xarxis IX's slave compound were now filled with chaos, fire, and war cries. Alien prisoners, who had been locked away for years, were now fighting for their freedom. Xalcor guards struggled to regain control, but they were outnumbered. In the middle of it all, Ethan Black and Tala sprinted through the dimly lit corridors, dodging plasma fire as they pushed deeper into the heart of the prison. "This is insane," Tala shouted, swinging her stolen baton to knock down a guard. Ethan laughed as he ducked under a laser shot. "No, this is fun." Tala shot him a glare. "Only a human would find this fun." Ethan grinned. "That's why we always win." She didn't have time to argue because, at that moment, the prison shook violently. A deep guttural roar echoed through the halls, sending chills down every prisoner's spine. Tala's blood ran cold. That wasn't a normal guard. Ethan's smirk faded. He recognized that sound. He had heard something like it before, in the wars back on Earth. It was the sound of a monster being unleashed. The Xalkor's deadliest weapon. Far behind them, in the upper control room of the prison, Commander Vokran watched the chaos unfold on the security monitors. His clawed fingers curled into a fist as he observed the human leading the rebellion. "This human, he's dangerous," Vokran growled. The officer beside him hesitated. "Shall we call for reinforcements from the fleet?" Vokran shook his head. "No, this ends now. Release the warlord." The officer hesitated again. "Sir, the warlord will kill everyone." Vokran's red eyes glowed in the dim light. "Then let him. The monster arrives." Ethan and Tala reached a large industrial elevator, the only way up to the docking bay where the Xalkor stored their ships. "This is it," Ethan shouted. "Once we reach the surface, we grab a ship and..." Boom! A massive impact shook the walls, sending cracks through the metal panels. Ethan and Tala turned as the corridor behind them collapsed in a cloud of smoke and debris. And then, through the dust, a giant figure emerged. A warlord. Tala's eyes widened in horror. No. The Xalkor warlord was a 7-foot-tall beast, clad in thick black armor. His 4 glowing red eyes burned like fire, and his muscles looked like they were carved from stone. In one hand, he carried a massive energy axe, humming with deadly power. His voice was like thunder. "Who dares defy the Xalkor?" Ethan didn't blink. He stood tall and calm, despite the overwhelming presence of the warlord. Tala grabbed his arm. "Ethan, we need to run." Ethan tilted his head. "Run? From this guy?" Tala's face twisted in frustration. "Yes, that's a warlord. They are unstoppable. They were created to crush rebellions like this." Ethan smirked. "Guess we'll find out if that's true." Tala grabbed him again. "You don't understand. These things..." Boom! The warlord charged at them, swinging his massive axe. The sheer force of the attack shattered the ground beneath them, sending metal shards flying in all directions. Ethan barely dodged, rolling to the side. Tala was fast, too, flipping backward just in time. The warlord's deep voice rumbled with amusement. "Ah, the human. I've heard of you." Ethan spun his baton in his hands, eyes locked on his opponent. "Yeah. Sorry. I don't remember you." The warlord chuckled darkly. "You will before you die. A fight against the impossible." The warlord charged again, swinging his axe in a brutal arc. Ethan knew he couldn't block an attack like that. He had to be faster. He dodged left, barely escaping the edge of the blade. The axe smashed into the wall, cutting through solid metal like paper. Tala cursed. "Ethan, we can't beat him." Ethan didn't answer. His brain was working at full speed, analyzing the warlord's movements. Slow but powerful. Armor is thick, but has weak spots at the joints. Weakness. I need to find a weakness. The warlord lifted his axe again, but this time, Ethan moved first. He sprinted toward him, leaping into the air at the last second. The warlord swung his weapon, but Ethan twisted midair and landed on the beast's back. The warlord snarled in rage. "You insect." Ethan grabbed his baton and jammed it into the back of the warlord's neck, sending a shockwave of electricity through his body. The warlord roared in pain, staggering forward. Tala gasped. No one had ever made a warlord scream before. Ethan smirked. "Well, looks like you're not so tough after all." The warlord growled in fury, grabbing Ethan and throwing him across the corridor. Ethan crashed into a metal beam, groaning as pain shot through his ribs. Tala ran to his side. "You idiot. Are you trying to get yourself killed?" Ethan coughed, smiling weakly. "Not yet." The warlord, still staggering from the shock, turned toward them. His armor was smoking, but his eyes burned with even more hatred. "You will suffer," he snarled. Ethan wiped blood from his lip and stood up. "All right, big guy. Round 2. But before the warlord could attack again, boom! An explosion rocked the entire prison. The ceiling cracked, and a deep roar of engines echoed above them. Tala's eyes widened. The prisoners. They reached the docking bay. Ethan smirked. "Told you this would work." Tala grabbed his arm. "Now's our chance. We have to move." Ethan turned to the warlord, who was still recovering. He considered finishing the fight, but time was running out. He grinned. "We'll continue this later, big guy." And with that, Ethan grabbed Tala's hand, and they ran toward the elevators, leaving the warlord roaring in rage behind them. The brutal fight. The elevator rumbled violently as it ascended toward the docking bay. Red warning lights flashed, and the alarms screamed across the prison. The once silent halls of Xarxis 9 were now a war zone, filled with gunfire, explosions, and the dying roars of the Salcor guards. Ethan stood at the center of the elevator, gripping his stolen baton, his green eyes sharp with focus. Beside him, Tala's hands tightened around her own weapon. She had fought before, she had seen death before, but something about this fight felt different, as if the entire galaxy depended on it. A voice echoed through the prison speakers, cold and emotionless. "All prisoners, surrender immediately, or we will activate the orbital cannon and destroy every last one of you." Tala froze. They wouldn't, would they? Ethan's jaw tightened. They would. And we don't have much time. The elevator slowed, nearing the docking bay. Ethan turned to Tala. "Once we get up there, it's going to be chaos," he said. "Stay close to me. If we separate, we're dead." Tala swallowed hard. "Got it." The elevator reached the top. And then, all hell broke loose. War in the docking bay. As the elevator doors slammed open, Ethan and Tala rushed out into the battlefield. The docking bay was a massive open-air hangar filled with ships, weapon crates, and burning debris. Escaped prisoners fought desperately against Salcor reinforcements, dodging energy blasts and engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Tala's heart pounded. There were so many bodies, so much blood. Ethan, however, was completely calm. He grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a cargo crate, narrowly avoiding a plasma shot. "All right," he muttered. "First things first. We need a ship." Tala peeked out. "There's too much fighting. We'll never make it across." Ethan smirked. "We don't need to cross. We just need a distraction." Tala looked at him. "And how exactly do we?" Boom. Before she could finish, Ethan had already thrown a grenade toward a fuel tank near the center of the hangar. The explosion shook the entire docking bay. Fire erupted, throwing Zalcor soldiers into the air like ragdolls. The battle momentarily stopped as prisoners and guards alike turned toward the fireball. Ethan grabbed Tala's wrist. "That's our cue." They sprinted across the hangar, dodging bodies and debris. A Salcor guard leaped in front of them, raising his energy rifle, but Ethan moved faster. He spun his baton and slammed it into the alien's throat, knocking him backward. Tala leaped over his body, kicking another guard in the head. "We're almost there," Ethan shouted, pointing toward a sleek black dropship at the far end of the bay. But then, the air grew cold, and a deep, monstrous voice echoed through the hangar. "You cannot escape me." Tala froze in terror. The warlord had arrived. The final battle. The towering Zalcor warlord marched through the flames, his red eyes glowing like molten steel. His black armor, cracked and sparking from the earlier fight, only made him look more terrifying. All around them, the battle stopped. Even the prisoners stepped back in fear. The warlord raised his massive energy axe, pointing it directly at Ethan. "You should have died in your cell, human," he growled. Ethan smirked. "I get that a lot." With inhuman speed, the warlord charged forward, his axe cutting through the air like a comet. Ethan barely dodged in time. The blade sliced through the ground, leaving a deep, glowing scar in the metal floor. Tala jumped back, but she knew there was no escaping this. Ethan and the warlord circled each other, tension thick in the air. The warlord sneered. "You are nothing, human. Your species is weak. Your kind has no place in the stars." Ethan wiped blood from his lip and smiled. "You say that, but you sure seem scared of me." The warlord roared in fury and swung his axe again. This time, Ethan didn't dodge. He moved forward. Tala's heart stopped. "Ethan, no." The warlord swung down, but Ethan was already inside his reach. With explosive speed, Ethan slid under the axe, grabbed the warlord's arm, and jammed his baton into the alien's exposed shoulder joint. Crack! The warlord howled in pain, staggering backward. Ethan didn't stop. He grabbed a fallen plasma rifle from the ground, aimed it at the warlord's head. CLITK. Empty. Ethan muttered a curse. "Damn it." The warlord laughed, despite his pain. "You are fast, human, but you are out of time." Tala ran forward. "Ethan, move." But it was too late. The warlord grabbed Ethan by the throat and lifted him into the air. Tala's eyes widened in horror. No, no. The power of humanity. The warlord squeezed Ethan's neck, his massive hand tightening around the human's throat. "You fight well," the warlord growled. "But in the end, you are only flesh and bone. And I am a god." Ethan gritted his teeth, struggling to breathe. The warlord smirked. "Your rebellion is over, human. Any last words?" Ethan smirked back. "Yeah," he rasped. "Look behind you." The warlord frowned. Just as Tala leaped onto his back and stabbed an energy blade into his spine, the warlord screamed in agony, dropping Ethan. Tala twisted the blade. "You talk too much." The warlord stumbled, his body convulsing. His 4 red eyes dimmed. And then he fell. The entire hangar fell silent. Ethan coughed, getting back to his feet. He looked down at the warlord's motionless body and grinned. "Now that," he panted, "was fun." Tala gave him a look of disbelief. "You're insane." Ethan shrugged. "Yeah, but it worked." She sighed, then smirked. "Yeah, it did." But their victory was short-lived, because above them, in the sky, the orbital cannon began to charge. The final escape. The sky above Xarxis 9 burned with fire. The orbital cannon, a massive space station hovering above the planet, began charging its main weapon. The air vibrated with energy as red lightning crackled around the colossal barrel. Every prisoner, every fighter in the docking bay stopped and stared at the sky. They knew what it meant. If that cannon fired, everything below would be turned to ash. No more rebellion, no more escape, just death. Tala clenched her fists. "We have to stop that thing." Ethan nodded, his green eyes narrowing. "Yeah, and I think I know how." He turned toward the Xalcor warships scattered across the docking bay. They were small, built for speed, but one of them could get them into orbit. Tala followed his gaze. "You want to fly up there?" Ethan smirked. "No, I want to blow it up." Tala groaned. "Of course you do." Before she could argue, a squad of Zalcor reinforcements stormed into the bay, their weapons raised. "Kill the human. Secure the ships," their leader roared. Ethan sighed. "Looks like we're fighting first." Tala pulled out her stolen rifle. Try not to die, human. Ethan grinned. No promises. And then, the battle for their lives began. A race against time. Blaster fire screamed through the air. Ethan dove behind a fallen cargo crate, plasma shots scorching the metal above his head. Tala was already returning fire, her rifle kicking back in her hands. She took down 2 Xalcor soldiers in quick succession, their bodies collapsing in smoking heaps. Ethan peeked over the crate and spotted their target. A sleek, black and red Xalcor attack ship parked near the edge of the bay. "That's our ride," he muttered. Tala turned. "How do we get to it?" Ethan smirked. "Like this." He grabbed a grenade from a fallen Xalcor soldier, pulled the pin, and threw it high into the air. The explosion ripped through the enemy squad, sending bodies flying. Before the smoke cleared, Ethan grabbed Tala's wrist. "Run." They sprinted toward the ship, dodging blaster fire and jumping over fallen enemies. A massive Xalcor soldier stepped into their path, raising a heavy plasma cannon. Ethan didn't slow down. He slid beneath the alien's legs, grabbed a fallen baton, and jammed it into the back of the soldier's knee. The alien roared in pain and collapsed, but before he could recover, Tala shot him in the chest. They'd reached the ship. Ethan slammed his hand onto the control panel, overriding the security lock. The hatch hissed open. Tala hesitated. "You sure you can fly this thing?" Ethan grinned. "Nope." She groaned. "I hate humans." They jumped inside, and the ship's engines roared to life. As the cockpit's displays lit up, Ethan grabbed the controls. "All right, let's see what this baby can do." And with that, they blasted off. Into orbit. The stolen Xalcor attack ship shot through the sky, leaving the burning prison behind. Ethan pushed the engines to their limit, dodging debris and laser fire from enemy fighters that had begun pursuing them. "Hang on," Ethan yelled as he rolled the ship to the side, avoiding a missile. Tala gritted her teeth. "Can you not get us killed before we reach the orbital cannon?" "Where's the fun in that?" Ethan smirked. Ahead, the massive orbital cannon loomed, a city-sized weapon floating in space. Red energy swirled around its core, preparing for the planet-killing blast. Ethan's expression darkened. "We don't have much time." Tala pointed at the station's shield generators, visible along its outer hull. "We take those out, the whole thing is vulnerable." Ethan nodded. "All right, cover me." He grabbed the ship's turret controls and opened fire. The fight above the planet. Enemy Xalcor fighters swarmed around them, firing relentless barrages of plasma. Ethan rolled the ship, weaving between the incoming blasts, while Tala fired back, taking down one fighter after another. "Shields at 60%. Tala warned. Ethan cursed. "Not good enough." "Hold on." He suddenly cut the engines, letting 2 enemy ships shoot past them, then reignited the thrusters, flipping behind them and blasting both into fireballs. Tala gaped. "You're actually good at this." Ethan smirked. "I have my moments." The orbital cannon shields flickered. "We're almost there," Tala shouted. Ethan aimed the ship's missiles at the shield generators. Target locked. He hit the trigger. Boom. The generators exploded in a chain reaction, and the station's shield collapsed. Tala's eyes widened. "That's it. We can destroy it now." Ethan's face hardened. Not yet. He turned the ship toward the station's core, the heart of the cannon. The only way to stop it was from the inside. The last stand. Ethan piloted the ship straight into the station's docking bay, skidding across the metal floor as enemy Xalcor guards swarmed toward them. Tala raised her gun. "You better have a plan." Ethan grabbed 2 explosives from the ship's supply rack. "Oh, I do," he said. "We're blowing this thing up from the inside." Tala groaned. "Why do I even ask?" They rushed into the station, fighting their way through Xalcor soldiers as alarms blared. The core chamber was massive, a swirling vortex of energy surrounded by control panels. Ethan tossed Tala one of the explosives, set it near the main reactor. Tala nodded and sprinted across the platform, dodging enemy fire. Ethan set his own explosive near the stabilizer column. A deep voice growled behind him. "You cannot stop us." Ethan turned and came face to face with the Salakor commander, Vokran. The alien lunged at him, claws flashing. Ethan barely dodged, rolling across the floor and grabbing a fallen plasma rifle. Vokran sneered, "You fight well, human, but this station will fire, even if I die." Ethan grinned. "Yeah. Then let's speed up the process." He shot the control panel, overloading the energy flow. The reactor began to implode. Vokran's eyes widened in horror. "What have you done?" Ethan smirked. "I just gave your cannon a new target, itself." He kicked Vokran back, then ran for the exit as the entire station began collapsing. Escape and victory. Ethan jumped into the ship, Tala right behind him. "Go," she yelled. Ethan punched the thrusters, and they shot out of the station just as it exploded in a fireball of energy. The orbital cannon erupted, debris scattering into space. Below, on Xarxis 9, the prisoners cheered in victory. Tala collapsed into her seat, breathing hard. Ethan grinned. "Told you we'd make it." She shook her head. "You're insane." Ethan laughed. "Yeah, but now we're free." And for the first time in years, so was everyone else. Freedom and a new legend. A galaxy forever changed. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the cockpit window, a sea of infinite blackness speckled with the dying embers of the destroyed orbital cannon. The once mighty Salakor battle station, a terror that had crushed rebellions for decades, was now nothing but floating wreckage in orbit above Xarxis 9. Below, the surface of the planet erupted in celebration. The former prisoners, thousands of them, stood among the ruins of their once hopeless prison, their voices rising in a victorious roar. They were free. Yet, in the cockpit of the stolen Salakor attack ship, Ethan Black wasn't celebrating. His green eyes were fixed on the ship's communication panel, which flickered with an ominous message. "Human, you have made powerful enemies today. The Salakor are not finished." A cold voice, deep and emotionless, echoed through the speakers. Ethan leaned back in his seat, letting out a slow breath. "They always say that." Tala, sitting beside him, frowned. "You recognize that voice?" Ethan shook his head. "No, but I don't need to." He turned to her with a small smirk. "It's the same speech every empire gives when they realize they just lost." Tala scoffed. "You really think this is over?" Ethan's expression darkened. "No, but we bought time." Tala studied him for a moment. The human soldier who had walked into an inescapable prison and turned it into a battlefield. The one who had stared death in the face and laughed. She had never met anyone like him. And deep down, she knew she never would again. "Where do we go now?" she asked. Ethan's smirk returned. "Anywhere but here." He gripped the controls, and with a smooth pull of the thrusters, the ship shot forward into the void. Behind them, Xarxis 9 faded into the distance, but the legend of the human soldier who freed an entire prison planet had only just begun. A galaxy on fire. The Salakor Empire had ruled the stars for centuries. It had crushed rebellions, wiped out civilizations, and enslaved entire species. And yet, on this day, one man, one human, had made them bleed. The news spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, resistance groups, freedom fighters, and enslaved worlds whispered the same name, Ethan Black. To some, he was a myth. To others, a sign that the impossible could be done, that the Salakor were not invincible. And for the first time in history, the Salakor themselves began to fear. Aboard the Salakor flagship, the Tyrant's Wrath. In the deepest void of space, beyond the reach of most civilized worlds, a massive warship hovered in silence. Its dark hull reflected no light, an eerie shadow against the endless cosmos. Inside, A council of Zalcor warlords sat around a burning holographic display, showing the face of one human. The supreme warlord of the Zalcor, an ancient, cowering creature covered in ceremonial black armor, watched the image with narrowed, seething eyes. "A single human," he growled, his voice like distant thunder. "A primitive, unworthy creature. And yet, he has burned our station, freed our slaves, and humiliated our rule." The warlords shifted uncomfortably. One of them, an older Zalcor general, spoke. "My lord, this was a single event. We will crush the rebellion before it spreads." The supreme warlord turned his burning red eyes toward the speaker. "You are a fool." The room fell silent. The supreme warlord slowly stood. His shadow loomed over the council, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a terrifying certainty. "This is no mere rebellion. This is the beginning of a war." He turned to his officers. "Send the fleet. I want every remaining prisoner of Xarxis 9 executed. No survivors." Then he paused, considering. "No, not just the prisoners." He turned back to the hologram of Ethan's face. "Find him. Bring me his head, and I will burn his homeworld myself." The warlords bowed. "It will be done, my lord." The supreme warlord stared at Ethan's image for a long moment before speaking one final time. "Let the humans know. The Zalcor do not forgive, and we do not forget." New allies, new enemies. Somewhere, deep in the void, Ethan and Tala sat in the cockpit of their stolen ship, heading toward uncharted space. Tala sighed. "I still don't get it. You could have escaped alone. Why did you go back for us? Why did you fight for people you didn't even know?" Ethan leaned back, crossing his arms. "Because," he exhaled, staring at the stars, "because humans don't leave people behind." Tala tilted her head, watching him. "And what about now? You know they'll come after you. The Zalcor won't stop until you're dead." Ethan grinned. "Good. I'd be worried if they did." Tala shook her head. "You're impossible." Ethan tapped a button on the control panel, pulling up a star map. "So, where to next?" Tala smirked. "Somewhere with strong drinks and weak laws." Ethan chuckled. "My kind of place." The ship's engines roared to life, pushing them toward the next adventure. And in the cold depths of space, a war unlike any before it was about to begin. Because now, the Zalcor weren't just fighting rebels. They were fighting humanity. And humanity never stopped fighting back. Final suspense hook. As Ethan and Tala's ship jumped into hyperspace, a mysterious ship followed them from a distance. Its design was sleek, advanced, not Zalcor, but something else. Inside, a cloaked figure watched their trajectory, his eyes glowing with intelligence. "So, this is the human everyone is talking about," he muttered. He leaned forward, his lips curling into a slight smile. Interesting. The ship vanished into the void. And the legend of Ethan Black had only just begun.